Welcome back to the Dating and Relationship Playbook with Chaz, where we discuss having, maintaining, and improving healthy relationships, and not just relationships with our significant other, but also relationship with our family, friends, and God. And I got two special guests on. I got family on today. I got my cousins, Pastor and uh, Mr. and Mrs. Bruce and Madge Douglas on today. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we glad we could join you, Chaz.
I see before we get started, I do see the Fada Illini back there. You know, they had a great run. And so I was like, I see you got that back there. So that they had an awesome season this season.
Yeah, it was it surely was a great year for him. Anytime you get to the Final Four, it's special. So we got a chance to support him, encourage him, and be there. Didn't turn out the way we'd like, but
Yeah.
they did have a great year.
Yeah. So I do want to, I transition, I pivot the podcast from, just kind of being a podcast where I talk about, whatever is on my mind or, just having good dialogue to where I'm focusing on dating, relationships, marriage. And so I think one of the posts that you all posted about how long that you've been married. And I know that, that's important to having that longevity. So, before we get into that, I do want to give you opportunity. I do want you all to share, like, how did Bruce and Mash, how did you all meet? How did you like what's the story behind that love connection?
Well, we have many years together. We've been knowing each other since the sixth grade. So he
Wow.
came to
Okay.
my school in the sixth grade. And so then from there, we went through all through junior high school. So in the 10th grade, we finally made it a love connection. He chased me all that time. So I finally gave in the 10th grade. So we've been high school sweethearts and we've been together since the 10th grade and all through college and all that good stuff. So we had about 6 or 7 years of dating before we actually married in 1986.
Yeah, well, my story's close to hers, Chaz, but no, yeah, we grew up. Actually, our families lived across the street from one another.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so we our families have known each other all of our lives. But yep, I met Madge. In the sixth grade, we went to the same elementary school and caught the school bus to junior high, and then as we started dating in high school, we went to college together. And after graduating from college, we got married. And so,
We were
um,
actually the same height in the sixth grade. So he left me and he grew to be 6'4", and I stayed at 5'2". So, not fair.
that's very true. We were the tallest two in the sixth grade class.
Okay. And for my viewers and listeners, what city is that? What city and college is that? Just so they know.
Yeah, we grew up in Quincy, Illinois, right on the Mississippi, across the
Okay.
border from Missouri, and then we went to the University of Illinois, where I
Okay.
played basketball, and Madge was a student.
Okay. Okay. Now, Madge, cousin Madge, did you cheer? Did you cheer at Quincy?
I did. I was the cheerleader out there cheering for him all through high school. And then, college is a little bit more challenging. So I
Uh huh.
decided to focus on studies. And at the time, and you know what? Also a lot to keep up with someone that's an
Hmm.
athlete. So between, trying to keep up with, his daily athletic things that he had to do in his life and my life and school. So that was enough at that time.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Tell me about the proposal. Like, how did you know that was you're going to be your wife, and then how did you? It was that a surprise. Like, how was the proposal?
Well,
Can you let me talk? Because first of all,
tell the truth
no,
too.
there's no this. First of all, Chaz, the in our day,
I have to
we
laugh.
didn't have we didn't have a theatrical proposal
Oh,
where we got
okay,
to set
okay,
up the stage,
okay, okay.
but the proposals were very important. And Madge has always been aggressive, and so
I'm a planner. That's what it, I
yeah. So
plan.
in her mind, she planned my proposal, but in my mind, the
He said,
proposal had been established, long before that time. So no, we in college, we talked a lot about marriage, and that was what both of us wanted to do, and so it was just a pretty much a general proposal in the simple fact that I just told her I loved her and wanted to marry her, and she questioned me, you know.
well, to tell the truth, okay, so we talked about marriage quite a bit as were dating and all through high school and college and everything. And so when he was about to be drafted, I just gave him a look and I said, well, what are we going to do? I said, because I'm not going to be the girlfriend hanging out at the tunnel, so are
Hmm.
we going to get married or am I going to go my separate way or what are we going to do? He said, well, we're going to get married. And that was pretty much it. So to tell the truth, I'm still waiting for that proposal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, you can see why the proposal didn't. To her, the proposal was minimal because she was more concerned with us getting married. But no, in those days, you got a ring, and
I did have a ring. I did have a ring before then. It was it was a promise ring, is what it was. It was a beautiful ring. But we had a beautiful wedding. We had over 600 people at the wedding. It was fabulous. It was really a beautiful wedding.
yeah. So I mean, but the proposal, like anything, Chaz, in those days, marriage was a serious commitment, and it was something that we had, not only talked about, but had really come to being committed to each other for those years. It makes marriage real, and I think today one of the challenges is dating with the purpose of marriage, and
Hmm.
that's how we dated. And
Absolutely.
so to me, it was never in question whether I was going to propose. It was just a matter of when we were going to be married.
Hmm. With since your families knew each other, all those years, was it a little easier for that transition as far as asking the the family, hey, this is what I want to do, and then they just giving the family, her family giving you their blessing early because they've known you.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, by the time we got to college, Madge was just like a part of the family, and I was a part of her
Hmm.
family. We both were actually had single parents. My father had passed away when I was 15. And so, right before I started dating Madge, and Madge her mother had raised her, and so she had been a single mother. Her parents were separated. And so, we had a lot of things in common. But yeah, as far as it surely was a lot simpler. It was expected, I think, from both of our families that one day we were going to be married.
Hmm.
It was
Hmm.
actually our grandparents that lived across the street from each other. So yeah,
Okay.
it was an easy transition. His family, his sisters and brothers are my brothers and sisters, and mine are his. So it was just like it's always been Bruce and Madge, since we've
Hmm.
been teens. So yeah.
Yeah. When you talk about transition, I know it's different when you have when you're married and then having children. What was the transition like going from it's just you two to now it's I think because you have what 3 4 sons, right?
Yeah, we have four sons, and really,
Yeah.
I used to look at him and say, "Who do they belong to?" Sometimes because I think for Bruce and I, we truly are great friends. We have a
Hmm.
lot of things in common. We love sports. We love tennis. Tennis is one of the things that we really like to watch and play and do together. And
Okay.
when you have that, we've always really focused on our relationship. And then
Hmm.
the kids came, and we focused on the kids, but we never took our eye off of the two of us. Having our
Hmm.
time together and our time in the Lord together. Or whatever. But now we're empty nesters and we picked up right where we've always been. It's never been we had this gap where we're roommates or I don't like you
Hmm.
or whatever, how people go through things these days, but we've always been true friends that really love each other. So
Yeah,
I want y'all.
no, go ahead, Chaz.
Yeah, I wanted you all to stay there because a lot of times, especially us being Christians, a lot of time we want somebody that's in the, that's with the Lord. How important is just that, like you said, having things in common, just the regular everyday life? How important is that in a relationship? Because a lot of times in Christian, we can look at and say, "Hey, I want somebody that is, is a Christian too," but then they might not have anything in common.
Yeah, I think relationships, they have to grow in a way where you not only have things in common, but you learn to know one another. And I think that we were fortunate that because we met at a young age and we were focused on, enjoying life and having a successful life, that we've spent time understanding that the most important thing for us was us in our
Mm,
relationship. And so I think that when you get that solid ground, don't get me wrong, you want to marry. If you're a Christian, you need to marry
yeah,
a Christian,
yeah,
but you
yeah,
don't need to marry them because they're a Christian.
yeah,
You
yeah.
need to find someone that you love, someone that you can be open and honest with. I think today, I talk about this all the time during counseling with young couples, that we market ourselves,
Mhm.
during that dating stage.
Mm-hmm.
And we spend so much time today marketing that we really don't get to know one another.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we miss out on some of the key elements, key characteristics. And so we were blessed that in our day and time, we really got to know one another. And so as we grow in that personal, intimate relationship, nothing really becomes more important than we are. And so when we had children, it was an offspring of us. It was us
Uh-huh.
learning how to enjoy the kids,
Mm-hmm.
why it grew our relationship closer together. We never allowed, the kids to become more important than the two of us in the
Mm-hmm.
ideal of becoming what God wanted us to become and raising them to what God wanted them to be. And so I think in that process, you learn to love, you learn to forgive, you have disagreements, you learn how to grow in taking on different passions,
Mm-hmm.
learning how to do different things. And so all of that is a part of the growth process. And I think, when we had the kids, we were able to keep our relationship growing during that time, so that
Mm-hmm.
now that we are empty nesters, we not only look forward to it, but we're
Mm-hmm.
enjoying it.
Mm-hmm. When you say you're able to, still grow and focus on what does that look like as far as that, having vacations, date nights? What is that? What did you all do to, keep that?
Well, let me say the most important thing to do is to continue to focus on helping one another. So we grew during that season of our life by me learning how to help my wife with raising the kids. She was a mother that worked. She did have some time when she stayed at home. She also was a stay-at-home mother, but for the most part, she helped in the provision of the family, and I learned how to help in the home, taking care of the home of the family, which just meant that there was things I learned that gave her rest and gave her peace, and she
Mm-hmm.
learned things that gave me rest and peace as I was trying to be the provider and the leader. And so, as we kind of focused in on what was dear to each one of us, and what really allowed us to have more time with one another. That's how I learned to grow. I learned, how to do dishes. I learned how to cook. I learned how to
Mm-hmm.
clean, and not that I didn't know how to do those things, but I learned how to do them from her, which uh,
Mm-hmm.
which which
And
helped
you
me.
had to know that was a big deal because when he played basketball, he used to tell me all the time, these are $1 million hands. They don't do this and they don't do that and they don't do this. So
Uh-huh.
then after he was done with basketball, I just kind of looked at me and I didn't say anything and I wash, he dries. So there's just
Mm-hmm.
different things, that like I said, I was home, he was home before me, he cooked. So I cooked the meat the night before, he'd make the sides. And so we had a routine, with the kids, so we keep them on a schedule. So, it's just really a partnership and working together.
And so, but Chaz, we sure still, you still have to have date
Yeah.
nights. You still have
Mm-hmm.
to cherish. It gets a lot tougher with kids. We have four
Mm-hmm.
boys, and they were busy. They, like most boys, they were,
They played
always,
every sport.
yeah, they were involved in sports.
Mm-hmm.
And so the key really was keeping the boundaries on those things so that they lined up with our relationship, with our marriage, with the things that we felt was God's purpose in our lives. And so the kids didn't take precedent over what we had established. They became a part of it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that today, that's one of the challenges for married couples, is to not let the children become precedent, but to let them
Mm-hmm.
become a part of what you already have. And our kids learned how to not just respect their mother and respect their father, but they also respected our relationship and the things that we cherished and that we always kept at the forefront of our relationship with them. That they knew there was nothing more important than mama, than than
Mm-hmm.
daddy's wife, and
Mm-hmm.
and they learned to understand that. And I think that really helped grow our relationship when my wife knew that, oh, those kids, if there was something that we had to choose between my wife or them, they would know that mom and what your mother has to do in our relationship and in this family is always going to be precedent. And
Mm-hmm.
and so that kind of set a good balance in our life, and it kept our relationship growing during those
Mm-hmm.
childbearing years.
And we truly did marry to date. So we always found time to do things, whether it be with other couples at church and, all the kids get together and have their fun, we went on vacations with the kids, but now we really go on some good vacations and
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
have kids anymore. But we always look for new and different things to do. We don't like to be stagnant and sit, and we like to be gone, and we've got the travel bug. So we travel quite a bit and go see them, and we just keep dating. So
Mm. One thing you said is you kept, you had the children as a part of the fam, or a part of your marriage, not that they took precedent. Where did you get, is that just because you are in prayer and God is saying, hey, this is how you supposed to do this? Like, what made you, like, where did that come from? Because a lot of couples, they do have, either a job or the children or certain things are number one in, that is above the marriage. So where did that come from?
Well, I think a couple of things. One, Chaz, I think from my family, one, we're from very close families. My family was very close. My mother and father surely was close, but I think also from the scriptures, the Bible, as I grew in a relationship with Christ, as we grew in our relationship with Christ, our prayer time together grew, our commitment to the kingdom and to spreading God's love grew in our lives. We were just blessed that God kept that at the forefront of our minds and our hearts, that the two of you are becoming one. And let me tell you, there's nothing in the Bible that God says becomes one outside of a marriage. And so
Mhm.
that closeness and that intimacy that we developed just naturally protects it. It protects one another. It
Mhm.
says, hey, listen, I don't ever want you to think something's more important to me. And so we lived our life and our relationship that way, and that's the way we raised our kids. And surely God, without His Spirit guiding us,
Mhm.
that wouldn't have happened. And so we were fortunate in that realm. But the ideal that that something is more important than that just never entered our minds or our hearts.
Mhm.
And I think if you asked any of our sons today, they would tell you the same thing.
and God
Mhm.
is so good and all that, Jazz, that those boys, they love us to death. We talk to them every day. They
Mhm.
call us every day, and we have a group chat, and we've allowed the
Mhm.
wives to be a part of our group chat.
Mhm.
So we have a group chat of like 12 of us now. But boys, we chatted up all day long with them. We're doing our jobs too, but we chatted up and we talk to them every day.
Yeah, I think
Awesome.
it's just relationship building,
Mhm.
Yeah.
during those years. We raised our kids. They didn't watch TV during the
During the
week.
week, only on the
Yeah, only
weekends.
on the
Okay.
weekends.
Okay.
And that was,
Okay.
Yeah,
and if you ask them, they would tell you they didn't
they
miss
didn't
much.
miss anything.
TV wasn't like it is today.
They would
Yeah.
come in and their food had to be set waiting for them. So I had their plates waiting for them when they walked in the door because they were very hungry athletes. And they would just nonstop. They had something to tell us about this and that and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the fact because there was no TV and it was all about communicating and building a
Mm-hmm.
relationship with them throughout their formative years and all through high school and everything. So yeah, we totally believe no TVs in the bedroom. We didn't have any of that, none of that. So
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you said that because our family is similar. Like I call my parents two, three, four times a day, and my
yeah,
sisters, we might. A lot of time we're on speakerphone. Everybody's talking to each other, and so we have people to call. My dad. Somebody called my dad was like, man, they calling you too. They calling you a lot. But I was like, that's just how our family is. We every my sisters they
yeah,
call my parents all the time, like two, three times a
yeah.
day. So like that's just how it is. So I'm glad to know somebody like we're not the only ones that do that because sometimes some outside looking in, a lot of people criticize the family like your parent you call your parents a lot or your kids calling you a lot. So I'm glad you all is we're not the only ones.
No,
No,
we definitely leverage technology. We merge a lot of calls and so and
Yeah,
so call, we merge them in and everybody's
yeah.
talking. And I mean, we love it. I mean, we just love spending time and talking and encouraging and building each
Mm-hmm.
other up. And we've got something to, and it's a sports family. So we're always talking who got traded, who got cut, who's playing tonight, so it's, and we're talking about scriptures. Oh, I got this scripture this morning or somebody's,
Mm-hmm.
saying something about the Lord. We got all kinds of conversations going that we're all but the biggest thing is just the relationships that we have
Mm-hmm.
that we generally genuinely like spending time and talking to each other.
well, and Chaz, I think you know, and you are, as a cousin, a family that communicates is important, and I think we taught our kids the value of communication,
Mm-hmm.
the way God had taught us as we
Mm-hmm.
grew in our relationship. But today, that's a missing element
Hmm.
out of our families because today we kind of have families that want to be separated from their mother and father. They feel like, oh, and listen, the Bible says, teaches, hey, you leave your mother and father and you cleave to your husband and wife. But nowhere in there does God not teach us, just like He's our Father, that we don't still lean on our parents for
Mm-hmm.
direction, for encouragement, for wisdom. And I think that those things are what's missing in a lot of our relationships today. A lot of the marriages, especially young marriages, just don't have enough support to help them get through the challenging times, the difficult times. And those are all normal times in marriage. We don't want you to think we never had any difficult challenges. We didn't have some tough times.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things are a part of what builds a strong relationship. And God has let us go through every season and experience all the difficult things that life can bring. And in
Mm-hmm.
the midst of all of that, we learned how to be joyful. We learned how to be peaceful, and we learned how to
Mm-hmm.
build our relationship with one another. And that's a challenge today. I wish there was more families like yours, more families like
Mm-hmm.
ours, that after you become an adult, after you become married, you still value what's most important to you, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
relationships that you have with your family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's good. Um, what advice? Because you talk, when you close to 40 years of marriage, like you say, you do have, difficult times. What advice do you have for couples that may be having challenges in their marriage or maybe having a difficult season, in their marriage?
Well, let me say, first of all, I think what's most important is to have a relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you, my wife, I love her with all of my heart. She has been a great encourager and support system for me, but she's not God. God is the one who is able to sustain me when I feel like I can't go on. He's the one who I lean on his promises during those difficult seasons of unemployment, the difficult seasons of transitioning to, from sports to routine life. Um, those things you have to look to the Lord for. And as you look to the Lord, you have to lean on your wife or your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
You have to let them know that, listen, I'm struggling. And as I struggle through this, I'm looking to the Lord for direction, and I'm looking to you for support as well. And so I think it's, for the young couples out there, know that you will get through it, that God will give you the strength when you think you don't have it, that God will give you peace when everything seems to be totally out of sorts, and God will give you joy um, as you go through it and realize that He is the one that has your life in His hands. And so, we've learned those, but the only way you learn them, Chaz, is to go through things.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to give this facade that marriage has seasons where everything is just peachy keen. We never have a disagreement.
Mm-hmm.
The kids never get on our nerves. We never feel like I'm doing more than you are. Those things are natural. And as we communicate through them, we find the answers to them. And today, most of our young couples are not finding answers because they're not willing to ask questions when the problems come. They're
Mm-hmm.
looking for ways out instead of ways to go through it. And so I would just say, hey, listen, find you some good Christian fellowship, because you need to have couples around you, family around you that can remind you, I've been through this. It's very normal. You're going to get through this. And when you get through it, you're going to learn to cherish it, because it is what really builds the foundation of what we really have. And it really teaches us if we really have a foundation, because we only know when the challenges and the trouble and the trials come our way.
Absolutely.
One of the things I know that in marriage, and I know pastors have said, hey, make sure that you don't tell your business to other people, or you keep that in the marriage. How do you how do you do that? And then also, what advice do you have when you do have people, individual or couples having outside this I'm not gonna say distraction, but outside voices trying to comment on their marriage.
Well, even just like when you're married, you pick bridesmaids and groomsmen that, are truly part of your circle, that will be there to encourage you and, give you a word of wisdom along the way of your marriage. So I think you surround yourself with these good, solid Christian people. And I think that's what Bruce and I have done. We've got great family members, our brothers and sisters that have longevity of marriage. And,
Mm-hmm.
we counseled with them early on in our marriage when, Bruce was transitioning from basketball to, going to get a career. That wasn't an easy transition, because like I said, all he knew was basketball, and what
Mm-hmm.
God had for him to do. And then, at that time, it was like, we got to pray about this. We got to get us a church home. We got to get around some
Mm-hmm.
folks that, are in the word that can encourage us along the way. And I think that's what you really have to have that solid Christian foundation around you, so you know who to go to that's going to give you some words of wisdom, godly wisdom, to get you through whatever you're going through. And and the people that are around you, they can look at your face and tell what's going on with you. They can look and say, oh, is everything okay? When you're around those people that are truly in it with you, they know when
Mm-hmm.
things are not right and when things are good, or whatever. I used to tell Bruce, you got to call so and so. His wife called today and things ain't going good. And then Bruce will give him a call and he'll be, what do you mean? Everything's fine. There's nothing wrong with me and my wife. And when she called my wife today, and man, you got a problem. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think too, Chaz, and the Bible teaches us that you can't share everything with everybody. I mean, there's just some
Mm-hmm.
people that you have to be mindful of, that you have to encourage each other during those seasons that
Mhm.
are challenging. That, listen, let's try to make sure we share it within our circle, because the enemy is constantly trying to find a
Mm-hmm.
foothold. He's constantly trying to get us to share something with gossipers and with people that
Mm-hmm.
just want to try to tear down relationships. That's
Mhm.
out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's real. It's spiritual warfare. And so having that, praying for discernment, for the people that God will send you to. And through my life, I've been blessed. God has always sent the right kind of people in my life. And let me say this for all of the men that are leaders: you have to choose the people you want in your life. You can't
Mm-hmm.
have everybody in your life. They can't all be because they're popular, because they're athletes, because people like them. They have to be people that have good character. They have to have people that value integrity, and they have to be people that are committed to loving their wives and loving the Lord. Um, and those things aren't hard to find. And today, we struggle because we let people in our lives and in our circles because we want to be people pleasers. We want to be popular. And if you want to have a marriage that's going to last, then you're going to have to learn how to protect it and to learn how to surround yourself with people that have the same biblical worldview, people that have the same commitment, and people that are not just loving and understanding, but are very forgiving. Because we have to really learn how to forgive one another as we grow in this life, as God is molding us and shaping us into the people He wants us to be.
One of the things we you all discussed a couple times was that transition from back after life after basketball. Cousin Madge, how did you support, like how was that, how did you encourage cousin Bruce, how did you support him as a wife during that transition? Because like you said, from the time that you're a youngster to 20, 30, years old, you've been
Yeah.
playing basketball for 30, 40, well, not 40 years, but
Mhm.
25, 30 years at the time. So that's a, how did you encourage him during that time?
Well, of course, like I said, I'm a planner. So it's like, okay, what's next? Really. And
Hmm.
all through us growing up, Bruce always wanted to be, he always would tell me he wanted to be the governor of Illinois. He always wanted to be the governor. And the Douglas family, they can debate. They like to debate, and everything. And I'm like, okay, do you want to go to back to school? You want to go to law school? What do you want to do? You
Hmm.
said you wanted to be the governor. Do you want to go into politics? Do you want to go overseas? Do you want to play basketball overseas? So it was really just trying to go down the list and then really
Hmm.
praying about what's next. What's next? What did he wanted to do, for to support our family, and what was our family agenda, because that was one thing he talked about is we have a family agenda. It was what God wanted for our agenda, because I think when you're the head of household and God put the man as leader, what's the plan for our family? So he always did talk about what our plan and our agenda for our family would be. So it was just really a matter of praying about what was next, what he wanted to do, and then just really moving on that. So
Yeah, well, I think I will say this. I think the most that what a man looks for in a woman, his wife, is just someone who believes in him. And so I
Hmm.
think the best thing that Madge did for me during that time was just to believe in me, to believe that, hey,
Hmm.
I know God will give you the answer. I know that you're going to lead our family the way you always have, and I think that's what we look for. I mean, when the Bible says wives, honor your husbands. It really just means to be able to lift them up, to be able to encourage them,
Hmm.
to be able to let them know that no matter how bad things look, no matter how much the transition we're going through, that you are the man that I wanted you to be. You're the man that I'm trusting to get us where we need to go. And I think during that season of my life, that was probably the most important thing. And that's why it's important to know one another, because
Hmm.
there's just certain things that men need at different seasons of life, and as we get to know one another, we see that. And so that was valuable. That was life changing for me, and that kept me afloat. That kept me seeking God and kept me um, realizing that God had a calling on my life, and that I had to walk by faith through that season, and so that's what kind of led me into the ministry. I tried coaching, like she said, let's try these things.
mhm.
I tried those things. Of course, I was fortunate that I did get a career in management as well. But
Hmm.
the bottom line is that you have to have someone in that very precious time, someone that will wait and not try to push you too fast, too hard, but allow things to kind of manifest. And Madge did a good job of that. She waited, for me to for God's plan to manifest, and that was life changing.
Yeah, my cheerleading skills came into play because I was his cheerleader for sure.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's also as we close and this I do want you to give some marriage advice, just maybe some general biblical marriage advice for um it could be a young couple, it could be a couple, it can be just a couple. Yeah, we'll be if maybe a couple that's not where you are right now, maybe 20, 10 years, 5 years.
So,
What
Mhm.
advice would you give them as some keys to longevity to be where you are, where it be 40 years in August?
well, a couple things. First, let me say this to the couples that are thinking about marriage.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
and let me say this: create a silhouette. Get in your mind the kind of person, the kind of traits, the kind of personality that you want them to have. And then make sure you have that vision in your mind of the kind of person that you expect God to bring into your life, you expect to meet. And then write down a few things that out of that silhouette you will not compromise.
Hmm.
Um, and I think for couples today, we just have not set boundaries on the things we won't compromise, so that we won't get involved in things we shouldn't be involved with, or people we shouldn't be involved with. And then I would say for the couples that are married, love your wife or love your husband just the way they are, and let God move them and mold them and shape them. I think today all of us married with the idea of, I'm going to change him, I'm going to change her. There's some things that I'd like to see her do different. What we've learned through our 40 years nearly of marriage and our other 7 years of dating, is that when we love each other where we are, man, God
Yeah.
molds us into what we should be. And he does it. We think that we're changing him, and he's changing us, and he's changing us because we're learning how to love just the way we are. That's what we committed to in marriage. And then finally, I would just say, man, stay committed. Trust God. Stand on his promises. He'll never leave us or forsake us. He'll provide all that we need according to his riches and glory. And if we keep our mind stayed on him, he will keep us in perfect peace. And if you will rely on just those few things, you will see the power of God's love just guide your life into a place where you thought it could never get to, and into understanding what he meant when he said the two should become one. So that's what I would encourage the couples. I'd leave you with that, and let them know that marriage is a challenge. It takes work.
Hmm.
And so if you marry, know that you marry to date, and that there is going to be a lot of work in your marriage becoming what God wants it to be.
And always make sure comings and goings with a kiss. So he doesn't leave without giving me a kiss, and he doesn't come in without giving me a kiss.
I was just thinking about this. Did you all because this the book kind of became more popular or more well known after you all been married. With the five love languages, that you all kind of align some of the some of the things that you would do for each other, which you all like align that with the five love languages.
You know what? I've taught that through some of my classes. You know what? I would say we haven't really studied a whole lot. I mean, like I said, I led a couple of our groups at church through the love languages, and we've learned some things from it.
Yeah,
I
we
think,
did.
yeah.
We did.
I mean,
We
there's some
did.
things we've learned from a lot of
But
literally.
just for us though, it's like we try to outdo each other. So it's like I want to do for him before he can do for
Okay.
me. And so we figured out that way, if I can get things done and he can get things done, that's more time that we have for each other. So
Mhm.
there's some things that he doesn't even have to ask. I've already taken care of it. There's things he's already taken care of it. I'm like, oh well, we got time to go do this then. So I
Mhm.
think that all the love languages are probably our love languages. We give gifts to each other. Like when Valentine's Day, all those days come along, we don't recognize all that because we do for each other. We give
Mhm.
gifts all the time. So, really, I think we've grown in all of them, really.
Yeah, well, I think, well, let me say this because the Love Languages is a
It's a
great
great
book.
book.
It's a
Yeah.
great tool.
Mhm.
I've used it.
Mhm.
I think I would say this, Chaz, about the love languages. What I want to do is learn how to use all of them. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what
Okay.
Right.
Madge is talking
Yes.
about. I think when we
Mhm.
found out in our love languages, we love to serve, we love to give
We
gifts,
do.
we love to encourage. But what we've found is that what God does is He teaches us how to do the things we haven't done. and
Okay.
um and so we've learned to love in areas that God has brought to our attention, that we need to do, and we've done it. And surely I read. I'm a big book reader,
Mhm.
so I used to try to read a book every other week.
Oh, really?
I
Okay.
was reading some kind of book in my earlier days. Now I just find a good book today,
Mhm.
but they're all Christian based books.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Um, and I've learned from a lot of the great pastors, Tony Evans and
Dr.
Dr.
Stan,
Jeremiah,
Dr.
Dr.
Stan.
Stanley. I've read, gosh, the older ministers, older pastors,
Mhm.
a lot of books. But yeah, listen, the love languages is a great tool. And I would encourage
Mhm.
every married couple to find out what your wife or
Mm-hmm.
husband's love language is. But I would encourage you even to go further and learn how to love through all of those languages.
Mhm.
Definitely. And even what the Bible says, to study your wife. And Bruce has definitely, he took the time to study me, and I took the
Mhm.
time to study him and respect him and know what he likes and what he doesn't like. So I think that the biggest thing is for the men to definitely study their wives, know what
Mhm.
their every mood is, ask them, talk to them, know what their favorite color is. The men
Mhm.
should know those things and do those things.
Do you find yourself like not even having to say certain things because you just know each other and say, oh, what is an
Absolutely.
example of maybe, I don't know, if you just cook a meal that he didn't even say, hey, I want this, but you just cook it. What are some
Well,
things?
he loves some bacon, so he loves his
Okay.
Oscar Mayer bacon.
Right.
So there'll be times when I'll be like, "Oh, he hasn't had a bacon sandwich in a long time. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
surprise him. He comes home, we can have a BLT, or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. He likes tuna, so I just know at times, and meatloaf. I just know when it's time to have all his
Mm-hmm.
different favorites and things like that. But the biggest thing is when we're like minded. Is when it comes to maybe a family member or one of our friends or something, and got to put it on our heart to do something because like he says, we love to serve and do for people. And I'll say, I was thinking da 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 da. He was like, oh my goodness, I was gonna talk to you about that. I was thinking the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. And we do that all the time. We do it
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
time.
I would say that same thing. I mean, first of all, I don't eat bacon often.
Not often, not
Or
even.
tuna. She's naming things that, but she's right because what happens is she seems to know when the time enough time has passed that I'm thinking about. I'd like to
Mm-hmm.
have that today,
Yeah,
and it
yeah, yeah.
seems to pop up on those. And definitely in the arena where someone needs something or someone calls, or we
Mm-hmm.
seem to have the same idea about what we can do to encourage them, what we can do to maybe support them or help them.
Yeah.
And those things are very important, that you have the same like-mindedness in those areas. It's, we call it a biblical worldview, but as you get to know one another, the worldview helps you grow to become one in purpose. We're two separate people, two different personalities. We still do
Mm-hmm.
our separate things, but when it comes to purposeful things, we are much alike.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, as we wrap it up, when I told my dad that I was gonna have you all on, he was like, "Oh, that's a great couple to have on." So I'm glad that we were able to connect, and have you on the podcast, and have you on during this transit my transition as far as going into the podcast talking about relationship and marriage and dating. So I appreciate you all coming on and doing that.
Sure.
Oh,
Let me say this, Chaz. We're very proud of you. We think you are. I've told you that before. A
Mm-hmm.
man with purpose, a young man, and a single man, and I think that's important. There's some things that God allows us and provides us the time to only do when we're single, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's something special when you see that and you take advantage of it and you answer that call. And we think that time will run out. We're ages. We let the things that the world's view puts restrictions on. But when
Mm-hmm.
we are living out God's purpose, I promise you that you're going to have enough time for every season that
Mm-hmm.
God wants you to have, and that includes marriage, children,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it may be. So keep doing what you're doing. Keep
Mm-hmm.
promoting and answering your call to encourage people and to help people, and of course, to serve God.
Amen.
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 Thank you for
Amen.
having us. It's been
Oh
wonderful.
no, no problem. This is another incredible episode of the Dating Relationship Playbook with Chaz. I hope you got a. I hope my listeners and viewers got a playbook or got a play from you all of nearly 40 years and what 40 probably 45 years, 46 years of relationship with each other. Thank you again.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
That was great.